Hello again, everybody. Today, the topic that was on my mind that I wanted to give us some rest from was dealing with other people's problems and other people's tragedies. Now, I know a lot of us out there think, we're good people if we deal with the world's problems and don't really talk about ours very much. But I gotta tell you, that is not healthy at all. You have to be able to filter in the information you get daily and make sure that you have an abundance of positive information. I'm not saying ignore, the problems in the world. I like to constantly promote, the struggles of black women and trans black women, non-binary people in my community, healthcare disparities in my community, as well as others if, it's not overstepping my boundaries. But to have every single individual in my life constantly bringing me bad news or constantly trying to bring me problems or bringing me problems just for the sake of complaining, I can't deal with that and my own life's problems because I have a lot of responsibilities and I have my own family, my own things to think about. So this idea of trying to be a good person, this idea of trying to say, I'm the person everyone comes to speak to, I've never liked that idea. And it seems like people really value that and try to say, this is what I need to be, and this will make me, likable, and this will make me not a bad person. But honestly, that's just ridiculous. No one can expect you to just be there at their beck and call. And if they do expect that genuinely, they can't love you. They cannot. Because you're less than an app on their phone to them. They wouldn't even bother a mindfulness app that much as they bother you and expect you to be there and expect you to have the answers or be okay with their decisions or be okay with everything they're thinking and, be okay with just throwing all of that at them. All of that at you, sorry. That's not okay. And I think you need to start valuing you. If you were outside of yourself, I think you need to look at yourself and start valuing that person, because you wouldn't do that to that person if you weren't you. You'd look at yourself and go, hey, come on, I'm not going to treat you that way. I'm not going to burden you because that's just not in your nature. So why would you accept it from other people? That's basically telling yourself, I don't care about you, which is not fair, because if you were outside of yourself, you wouldn't think that way. You know what I mean? If you were outside of yourself, if you were a new person and you were looking at yourself now, you'd say, hey, you got to respect yourself. Hey, you can't let that person treat you like that. So why are you doing it? Is it because you're afraid of confrontation? Sorry, I had to let that yawn off. Is it because you're afraid of confrontation? I mean, that's not a good enough excuse to tolerate being treated like garbage. Is it because you're traumatized? Okay, that's fine. Their counseling exists, therapy exists. Support groups exist. People who are dealing with the same thing you're dealing with. It may be hard to find because the world doesn't value mental health like I do, but there are groups. There are things you can go to. And I know it's not easy. And I know, especially if you're, black or just not white, going to counseling, you're more likely to face biases, especially if the counselor is white or just not from your community. But that's why you do your due diligence. You look for someone who, even if they are white, you want to make sure that they're used to treating people from our communities. You want to make sure they're aware of the disparities. You want to make sure they're aware of, the struggles we go through. And you have to question them on that. You have the right to question them on that. I don't know who convinced us, especially in, the black communities. I don't know who convinced us that we aren't the worthy consumer of these products. I don't know who convinced us that we worship the cops and we have to obey the cops, when in reality the cops have to obey us. Just because they were built up on a racist system, who cares? That whole premise is they should be protecting us. We shouldn't be appeasing them. That's why I don't really like when I look into my community and I see people saying, oh, we need to comply. No, we don't. We need to, personally, we need to rebel against that, because that is literally people coming into your community and just attacking you. I don't care if they have a badge. A badge is nothing. Just like money is really nothing. Just because we decided to trade it doesn't mean we can eat it and get extra life. You know what I mean? We might be trading napkins next. Doesn't mean the napkin is now all of a sudden more edible. You know what I'm saying? So just because you put a badge on a serial killer doesn't mean that they're a better person. You know? If a title made someone better, then Donald Trump must be Jesus. And if you feel that way, then me and you are going to have a lot of problems, because I don't think that. Now, I don't have any political real leanings one way or the other. I'm more of a socialist, kind of a person. I want everyone to be able to get healthcare. I want everyone to be able to get treated. Everyone to be able to eat. Everyone to be able to go to school. I don't like the idea of capitalism personally. But I'm not what would you call it? I'm not in, that bipartisan system that you'd see in America, where it's liberal or, Republican or conservative. To me, that's bread and circus. It's just a waste of time to try and pick a team like that. That's not how I think, because these are just people. And I don't think being associated with a group overlooks all of your personal flaws and makes you all of a sudden a good person. You know what I mean? If I were to, on paper, look at these two groups en masse, sure, I'd probably say I'd think the Democratic idea mission statement is probably better. But I'm sure if I look at the mission statement of Republicans, it's probably not terrible either. But the thing is, it's easy to see outwardly the terrible shit Republicans are doing. But that doesn't mean I agree with everything a Democratic person says or does. You see what I'm saying? People are individuals, and individually we are all pretty much garbage and not trying hard enough. We think we can just assign with a party and that makes us good. I definitely am not a Republican, but that don't mean I agree with everything a Democratic person says. So that being said, this idea that you can be a good person just by appeasing someone when you deserve to be appeased. You can't walk around your entire life trying to do a constant job interview to be in someone's life when they aren't even worth the hassle. They can't even keep a real job, and yet you're every day trying to convince them that you're worthy of being their friend. But they don't care about you. They're not treating you well. They're not giving you the basic necessities needed to have good mental health. But you're every day trying to interview to be in their life. Come on now, you can't put yourself through that. You need to give yourself some rest. You need to let yourself be free. I don't care if this person is a friend, a coworker. I don't care if they're a family member. I don't care if they're your mother. You can't live like this. You need space. You need freedom. Because you're going to reach a breaking point where you're either going to do something terrible to yourself or you're going to have just an explosive reaction. And really, I'd rather you just get a one-way plane ticket and fly to a distant country with a nice beach and just be homeless on the beach selling seashells by the seashore instead of reaching that breaking point. Because at least that's a new life. At least, that's a limited possibility. You know what I mean? But in the life you're living now, if you're just going to keep doing this, and even if you're in a country that benefits you, if you're not taking any of the benefits, you may as well just be homeless in another country. Maybe the distance from the people who are making you feel terrible will make you have a better life. Or if you're not willing to leave the country, then leave the people. Just go to a different city, go to a different town. You can't surround yourself with people who make you feel terrible and expect to have a good life, because no matter how far you get, they're still going to be who they are. If they're not trying to adjust, if they're not trying to change, if they still are going to see you the way they see you, regardless of how much you evolve, then what do you expect to change? That's why they say you are the company you keep, because if your company is going to see you as weak and, less than them, No matter how far you excel, no matter if you become like the president or a king or a doctor or whatever, or a queen or emperor, empress, like they're still going to see you as less than them. So what are you expecting? That they'll just all of a sudden wake up and go, thank you for being great, I'm now a new person. The amount of change you've gone through just trying to get to where you got to has made you a different person each and every day. Each version of yourself has been dying at night and waking up to a new updated version of new experiences. And if your friend group is still the same, that's a corrupted program. That's gonna constantly like make you reboot and reset to your earlier versions. You're gonna have to keep factory resetting yourself back to 10 years ago. That's not where you want to be. You need peace. You need rest. And if you're the kind of person who if you know that you're doing this to people, if you know that you're treating people like garbage, if you know that, you're putting people down and telling them, oh, you can't do it because I couldn't do it. If you know you're doing that, stop it right now. Stop it right now. If you know that you think about yourself in the way that I was describing at the beginning, if you know that you're the kind of person who thinks, yes, everyone should appease me, if you know that that's the kind of person you were already, and you know that you were trying to get your friends to interview every day to show that they're a worthy friend to you, and you know that you're the one that brings baggage to your friends and they rarely ever can bring anything to you without you criticizing them. If you know that's you, be honest with yourself. And I would say apologize to your friends, but you probably won't do that. So realistically, you need to learn to give these people space. And if you've convinced these people to be, obsessed with your company, or else they'll feel worthless, you need to convince them that they need to separate themselves from you because you are not healthy for them. You need to convince them to seek their own power. You need to convince them to see that they are great. You can't keep putting them down. It's not healthy. And it's not kind. It's very cruel, actually. And if you can't look in yourself and say what you've done wrong, and the people who you've treated wrong and that you've still treated wrong. And I'm not saying, and I know I go on a lot of tangents, people, but hey, this is why I made a podcast. I talk a lot. I'm not saying, there aren't situations where we have people in our life that are benefiting us and that we try and make them see their worth, and it might make us stressed and we might stress them out. I'm not saying every situation is going to be perfect. There's no just black and white situation. But I'm just talking about the situations that are very plain to see. And if you're in a very plain to see situation like this, you need to make some changes, is all I'm saying. If you can afford to have someone get out of your life, you need to do that. If you're able, because I think that will make you, happier. People outside of you would say, oh, well, you're in a worse off situation. You're not going to school anymore. Oh, you're in a worse off situation. You're not having your rent paid for you anymore. But look, if you're happier, look, all my life, people were telling me oh, I couldn't do what I'm doing. And I've gotten now very far in academia. And people are like, oh, you won't be able to do it because of, your background and where you're from and da-da-da. And now I got this far, and I'm I couldn't imagine still being that ignorant kid who believed that everyone I could ever encounter was always right and I was always wrong. I couldn't imagine still being that kid who would never believe in what I knew for fact. But I would take any bum on the street and whatever they said, I would believe. I will be blown every way by the wind of gossip, and I see people like that nowadays. They'll be given straight up information, but someone on WhatsApp will be spreading lies and they'll be convinced by it. They'll be like, oh, what if this person on WhatsApp is right? And I'm just I can't imagine being that unaware, that level of ignorance. And it's not ignorant oh, they're a bad person. It's they just do not know. That is the definition of ignorance. They are ignorant of their knowledge that they have already. You know what I mean? And I can't imagine being that person. And some of the same people who tried to make me feel that way about myself, the same people who tried to tell me that I don't know as much as them, or I'm not as wise as them, or I don't have as much, inside knowledge as them, I now see these same people They haven't really evolved, and they're still being blown all over the place by, hearsay and gossip, and by people that are much less than me, academically or, professionally. They're still who they are. But if I come to these people and I say, hey, here's the facts, they'll still question me, no matter how far I've gone. That's why you need to separate yourself. It doesn't matter how far you get. They have a memory of you, and that will never change. It's like it's written in the New Testament and in the Old Testament. A prophet is never without honor except in his own home. I'm pretty sure it's in the Old Testament. I'm pretty sure Christ was referencing the Old Testament. But yeah, and as some of you hear me say that, you think, oh, he's a part of our team. He's a conservative. He must hate so-and-so people. Nope. Me and you are not alike. I've put too much effort into helping too many communities for me to be associated with someone just because we might share a loose title of Christian thousands of years after it was put into practice. And now it has so many different connotations. Just because I follow like Yeshua doesn't mean I follow your church or follow your religion, your man-made practices. You know what I'm saying? Because hey, look, I will defend every LGBT, I'll defend every woman, I will put anyone in a position of power above me as a man. But some of y'all, you're from traditions that tell you, oh no, all these people are below you, and they need to appease you, and they need to apologize for being born into your world. Me and you are not alike. So don't get it twisted. When you hear me pray and you hear me do stuff, I don't hate who you hate. I don't base my life off of who I should hate next. So don't conflate us, okay? Now that being said, you can't live based off of someone in your past's perspective of you and what is good and what is smart and what is worthy. Because that person was in your past. They might still be in your life, but they started off in your past. They don't have to stay in your life. You get what I'm saying? You might have heard maybe good advice from them one time, and now you're under their heel for the rest of your life. They might have helped you out, and now they make you feel guilty every single time you have a disagreement with them because they helped you out that one time. That's not okay. That's not okay. Helping people is the bare minimum. That is a normal human thing to do. But movies and cultures and societies will make us think that, we're trading animals. We need to trade everything. We are not. We are not trading animals. We are animals that literally are meant to help ourselves and nature and the planet. We are literally the most advanced animals that can do that. But the powers that be will convince you that no, that's not right. And every other person you meet is happy to live that way, even if it isn't, good for their life. Even if society is breaking them down, for some reason they're convinced that this is the way society should be. And this is what a man is. A man is someone who is alpha and tries to scare people and tries to say, yeah, I'm the big man on campus, and tries to be a crab in a barrel and pulls people down around them. They'll convince you that's what a man is. These gendered, stereotyped ways of being that have been here for hundreds of years but aren't natural to human existence. We've been here for hundreds of thousands of years. These ideas of what we do with gender are not natural. That's why so many people have dysphoria. That's why so many people are suicidal, because society says you can't live the way you want to live. And so many people are literally out here trying to kill people because they just are who they are. And they're like, I don't want to pretend like I'm not this. So people want to kill people because they're in a body that, might have like male features, but they're like, hey, I'm completely comfortable dressing, in this way that looks more floral or colorful or feminine. And there are people who want to kill people for that. That's not normal. And they think, oh yeah, like my team, my political affiliation, my neighborhood, my philosophy, my family, my grandparents, they thought this way, so this is how I gotta think. Or, oh, my religion, this is, my religion, so this is how I gotta think. And they just accept it. They don't look into it. They don't question it. This is why the idea of tradition bothers me so much. A tradition can be a beautiful thing. A philosophy can be a beautiful thing. A religion can be a beautiful thing. All these things can be beautiful if you know why they started and if you follow that mission statement, which requires you to update as life changes, as societies change, as technology changes. The people who made these things would update them, like they would update it. But all of the followers hundreds of years later of these ideas, y'all just need a template to follow. Y'all don't know the mission statement. Y'all just want to follow something. So you're still following stuff that's 500 years outdated, needs an update. And if Moses was here himself, he'd be like, yo, why aren't y'all updating this? Why are y'all still like thinking like about Leviticus when y'all were never in the desert, like from Egypt? What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? And even back then, y'all are misquoting and misunderstanding culturally what they did. You were never there. But you're not reading the Old Testament. But you're still using principles that people told you. You're not even using the principles. You're using what people told you about the principles. About Leviticus. About Deuteronomy. It's just hearsay. Y'all don't read or even listen to audiobooks of the Bible. Y'all don't listen to podcasts about it. Y'all don't go to university for it. And the few people that do, they go to very specific religious universities, very specific doctrines. Y'all don't just look at it plain and simple. Y'all don't learn the different languages to get it in context. Y'all don't study. But you will study to the death what you feel like someone above you told you. You will study their words ad nauseum. Why is that? Why won't you just say, hey, I don't feel comfortable treating people like garbage. Maybe I should go and study this and see if it's okay, if God will still love me, if I don't want to stone a gay person in the street. Have you ever thought about that? Have you thought about giving yourself rest from bigotry? Because I know some of y'all don't really want to hate people as much as your relatives. Some of y'all are probably young. You don't want to be on this hate train your whole life. But you're afraid that your relatives won't love you. Or they've convinced you that you're going to some type of hell. Like, y'all need to really study. Y'all need to get peace from this. I'm trying to give y'all peace. That's the whole point of this show. I'm trying to give y'all rest. Y'all ain't supposed to be out here stressing about who am I hating today. Granddad said I should hate this person. Dad said I should hate this person. You don't have to hate anyone. Come on now. Give yourself some rest. That being said, I don't know if I had a main string of thought during this podcast. Get used to that, by the way. Unless it's like the nighttime sleep ASMRs, get used to me just rambling. It's just for you to switch off when you're going to work or you're trying to sleep. These are just my ideas that I've cultivated over a lot of time thinking from very, very, very specific situations. Let's just say I've had a lot of time to my own thoughts and a lot of time reading. Doesn't mean I'm right. It just means I've thought about these things more than, I guess, the average, 1,000 people around me. But all of that being said, you can't make yourself a certain person to appease other people because they think it's good. You need to look at what you think, what your philosophy is. Even if you're not reading books, listen to like the books or listen to people talk about, the thing you say you follow, and like look at different subsects. Try to get to the original source material as much as you can, and always be questioning. Question who's reading it to you. Question who translated it. And you know what? You're going to get a different outlook than I did for my faith. I feel that I've fully looked into it, but someone is going to have some other information, and they're going to find a different path from me. Someone else is going to find a different path from both of us. But at least we're trying. And at least at the end of it, I'm sure if you really put your due diligence into it, I'm sure at the end of it, none of us will say it's okay to objectify the other two. I'm sure that's the outcome we'll reach. We'll all come to an outcome where we're like, hey, live life the way you want to, man. Hey, I'm going to do my thing. You do your thing. Yeah, I'll see you at dinner. You know what I mean? Like, at the end, that's what happens when you really look into these things. When you get back to the root, the actual philosophy, the actual cause, the actual faith, the actual, Elohim that we say we follow. The actual political part, like the start of like actual, reasons for revolution, not just revolution for the sake of it. People talk about the Second Amendment in America. They don't like again, that's a perfect example of something that's just been titrated and watered down over like centuries. It's like, I just want guns for the sake of having guns and guns and guns, 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 guns. Doesn't matter how evil I gotta be to another person. I just want guns. It's like, did y'all forget why they even felt the need to like arm themselves and fight for quote unquote freedom, even though they didn't give freedom to a lot of people after, certain things were signed? We ain't gonna go into that. But like, yeah, did you not get the mission statement? They were actively being oppressed, so they said, hey, we need to take up arms. But y'all are just like, hey, I want this gun with like the laser scope and a rocket launcher, just so I can like, I don't know, if I get mad at someone, I can oppress them. That's really what y'all are doing. Y'all are literally the oppressors now. People need an amendment from y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's weird. Like, y'all don't look into these things. Y'all just accept it. Y'all just say, well, it's culture. That don't mean it's good. There's this quote that I forget where it came from. I heard it in another podcast, but I can't, actually, no, I heard it in was it a podcast or a meditation thing? Probably a mix of both. But the person was quote, and I'm gonna misquote them because I don't, I have dyslexia. My memory is not ideal. I have the type of dyslexia that doesn't retain information in my working memory very effectively. So it's not like the words flip around. It's like I don't take in information if I'm not directly looking at it or directly listening to it. So that being said, the quote was something like this: trauma dissociated over time, or trauma decontextualized over time in an individual is seen as personality. Trauma decontextualized over time in a family looks like family traits. Trauma decontextualized over time in a people group looks like culture. And I'm gonna look up who said that as well, because I really love that. I love that information, because it's so factual. It's so factual. And some of y'all, you just hear that and you say, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I know what I believe and this, that, and the other. But yeah, so Google Images apparently is telling me that it's Rasma Menakem. So y'all might want to fact check that. This is just a quick Google search, but that's what Google is telling me. Yeah. Now, I don't know their background, I don't know much about them. Google is telling me that they are a therapist with decades of experience, currently in private practice in Minneapolis, specializing in trauma, body-centered psychotherapy, and violence prevention. He has appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show and Dr. Phil as an expert on conflict and violence. Manakim has studied with best-selling authors Dr. David Snark, quote-unquote, Passionate Marriage, I guess that's a book he's written or something, and Dr. Bezel van der Kolk, quote-unquote, The Body Keeps the Score. So I guess he wrote that. He also trained at Peter Levine's Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute. And this looks like a Afro-Caribbean descent individual, but that's just from my immediate glance of a photo of them. They might be Middle Eastern Asian descent. I don't know. This is just from sight. I would say he's of my community, Afro-Caribbean, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so like, this is what I mean. Like, this is a counselor, someone who's done psychology, someone who, if I were going to seek a counselor or a psychologist or someone to talk to about my mental health, this is someone who I'd look up. I'd say, yes, this is someone who's probably from my community, or if they're not, they could understand my community. They've done extensive research into different trauma over different groups of people. And I value that. This is the kind of person who I put, my time into my mental health. But then if I didn't think, oh, this person actually is, if I thought, oh, this person actually isn't working for me, I'd find someone else. It's like, not every doctor or every psychiatrist, every psychologist, every counselor, not everyone has like the same just training and they're all just coming out of a factory. They all do the same exact thing. There are different philosophies, different ways of counseling, and even amongst those ways of counseling, there are people who do it differently. Not every GP is just going to be the same GP and treat you the same and do everything the same. That's not how that works. But that's how the world makes you think. Everyone makes you think like, oh, every doctor is just Doctor Strange, or every doctor is like someone from Grey's Anatomy, which is not an accurate depiction of medicine. But that's how people think about it. You know what I mean? And it's like, not only are there so many schools of thought, but in those schools of thought, there are so many different students and so many different ways they interpret things. And the people they're teaching, they interpret things different from the people teaching them. And you have to shop around. Not everyone has your best interests at heart. And also, just because they look like you doesn't mean that they are going to treat you the way you think they will. You got to shop around. You know, I mean, I've had Anglo-Saxon psychologists who have helped me, you know, amazing. But not saying I wouldn't immediately go for someone who's Afro-Caribbean. I would. But I'm just saying. But I've also had Anglo-Saxon counselors who have been very biased against me and told me I couldn't do what I'm doing now, and told me I couldn't reach these goals that I had because of their bias, because of people from my cultural background. And they were ready to sanction me. They were ready to tell me, like, oh, I'm not going to do well if I keep pursuing my dream. So that's what I mean. Shop around. Don't let one experience dictate, you know, what you think about an entire thing. Do your due diligence. Read your background into it. Do research into stuff. I know it sounds like a stress, but this is the kind of thing that can open up your life. Just simple Googling can open up your life. You know, just having one good friend around you, or one good, like, mentor around you to tell you some solid inside scoop that you didn't think existed because everyone around you is negative and told you it's impossible, when the answers were always available. You just never Googled it. You just took your friend's word for it, or you took your mom's word for it, or you took that one person who's in the industry. You took their word for it when they were wrong. Now, if you had just Googled it one time, and then look, you might bring it back to that same person. They might be so deluded, they'll still be like, no, I don't believe this. Just because they're in the industry doesn't mean they're right. I've spoken to doctors who are dead wrong, but they fully believe that they're right. Just because they're choosing to be wrong and follow tradition, you know what I mean, doesn't mean you have to. And just because someone went to med school, or is a psychologist, or has master's degrees or PhDs, doesn't mean every thought they have is a valid thought. Yes, they have practice in criticizing thought, but then at some point, they're going to just fall into a rut and follow tradition. A lot of them do that. It doesn't matter what your degree is. You know, I've been in university a lot of times, and most of those students, yeah, they're used to critiquing things, but then they will always follow a template and just follow that template to the end and never color outside the lines. And the minute they hit that stride of, oh, what does the university want me to do? They'll just follow that. And they'll only question what the university tells them to question. So don't confuse academic excellence with knowledge and wisdom. You know, that's just a tool. That is a tool that you get, you know, academic knowledge. But that doesn't mean you're wise. If you have a sword and your sword is very sharp and people like it, and, like, you know, people are praising it, saying, oh, this is an amazing sword, but you don't look into how to use that sword, you don't actually develop mastery of how to use the sword, you don't look into how can you use the sword to better, you know, my country or my family. Or if someone tells you you can only use the sword to cut people, but you don't look at how to use the sword as a teaching point, or you don't look at how the sword was developed, you don't know anything about the metal that was used in the making of this sword. If all you know is that, hey, I got this sword and my parents have handed down this sword and the sword is sharp and people tell me it's a good sword, you're not wise. You're not a sword master. You're a person who has a very expensive sword, and yes, that means you have a leg up in life, but that can only take you so far. You gotta understand swordsmanship if you want to be amongst those people who you call like a wise sword master. And to be even further than a wise sword master, you want to understand your sword to the point where you can be a blacksmith. You can make all kinds of swords. That's even wiser than one sword master. You want to be you know, a teacher of not just swords, but of weaponry, and of how that has affected the world and the tides and the economy. You don't want to just be a person with a sword. But so many of you are okay with that. You're like, look, I got my sword, it got passed down to me, I'm doing what I was supposed to do. And you just go around cutting people, and cutting people, and cutting people. And now we just got a bunch of paper cutout people, you know what I mean, paper cuts all over the place because you're just following this cookie cutter method, you know what I mean. And it's like, it doesn't make the world get any better. It's just swords blunting each other. That's all we're doing. We're blunting each other. we're supposed to be iron sharpening iron with wisdom, but instead you're just knocking your swords against someone else's swords, hoping you can beat them in some type of capitalist society. And that's not going to make you sharper. It's just going to make you dull. I don't know. I hope I'm making sense to y'all, because ultimately what I'm saying is treat people well. Because honestly, I don't see why that's an argument. I don't see how any philosophy at the root can tell you otherwise with good evidence. I don't see it. The only thing that can tell you that is a philosophy based on fear, which is not what any major religion is based on. It's not what any mindset is based on. That is actually meant to help you as a person, or meant to align you with a higher spiritual being that I can think of. I'm sure there are some out there, but none of the major ones I know of. So if you say you follow Yeshua, you say you follow my king, my God, there's not one practice that says, hey, you should hate people, you should live in fear of hell. That's not the mission statement. And if you try and bring me evidence of that, I will floor you. I will floor you. I have read the texts. I have read the Apocrypha. I have read these things backwards and forwards. I still to this day am learning about it, listening to different languages, reading it, different translations, and why they made these traditions up because of the translation differences. I to this day am sharpening my blade, sharpening my mind on how to use that blade. I have the full armor of God polished up in my mind. So if you try to bring me evidence saying this is why you should be walking down the street and beating up people for living different, I'm going to embarrass you. You know what I mean? And if you think, oh no, there is someone who can really, put this idea forward, and they argue much better than me. Well, one, you better bring someone who's been sharpening their sword better than you, because most of the people I've seen making that argument are dull. They don't even have a sword. They don't have a blade. They have a stick. And they're trying to come at me, person fully armored out, kitted out. But I don't even need to fight, because I have an industry, and I've been teaching, and I have people who are willing to stand with their swords in front of me because of the knowledge I've given. I've spread so much knowledge that has dispelled so much lies, so much clouds of lies, that I don't even need to raise my sword up to challenge these ignorant thoughts. Other swords raise up for me. And each and every one of them, as young as they are, as maybe old as they are, as maybe they didn't go to university, or maybe they're from a broken home, but the knowledge and the stories and the teachings that I've helped to bring together for groups of people, that in and of itself can dispel hundreds of years of lies. So if you're gonna come at me and tell me, oh, my king told you to be an evil bastard to someone. Sorry, my alarms keep going off. If you're gonna tell me that, I hope your stick is sharp, because look, other than that, you're about to be embarrassed. That's all I'm saying. So the mission statement here is treat people well. You get what I'm saying? Don't allow people to make you regularly performing for them, to say, hey, are you worthy of being my friend? If you are, never question me. That's ridiculous. Do you understand? Treat people well, and don't let people treat you don't let people not treat you well, essentially. Don't take advantage of people's anxiety, especially if you've never had anxiety. It feels like there's jet fuel in your chest. It feels like, you'd be better off dead because it feels like you're dying. Don't take advantage of that. It's not funny. And if you have anxiety and you're so willing to do that to someone else, you're at least a sociopath, but you might be psychopathic. And I'm not saying this just to insult someone. These are conditions. And if you know you're psychopathic, please, it's not worth... I know you don't understand what you're doing to someone else, but it's not worth treating someone like that. Please. Whatever little advantage you think you're getting, stop it, please. It's terrible. And if you're someone who is trying to appease people, and you're on the other side of that, and you're trying to always make people think that you're, worthy, Stop it. Just give up. They're not going to think you're worthy. They're going to always treat you like garbage. And if they ever do think you're worthy, they're going to try and take advantage of you. Please, give yourself rest. You need that. You deserve that. You know what I mean? You've done nothing to deserve the abuse that you're getting from people who are trying to make you always, prove yourself to them. If they don't respect you, don't be around them. And always be around people who are doing more than you're doing, who are always trying to make you level up. Always have your 5 closest people be people who are further ahead than you. Because nothing is wrong with that. As long as they're not treating you like you're less than. As long as they're seeing you and treating you with respect, that's fine. But if they have dreams and ambitions that no one else in your life has, be around them. If it scares you, good, be around them. You don't have to think everything they're doing is right. If they're doing banking and you don't want to do banking, that don't mean you have to do banking. But at least if you're around someone who's doing banking and they're trying to, improve, and they're trying to get a house in Monaco, and they're trying to, at least you're going to get new ideas in your life. But if you're around Billy, who you met at McDonald's, who you worked at McDonald's together for like 5 years, and Billy's just putting you down every lunch break, and Billy ain't giving nothing to you, and Billy's talking about someone who they're trying to get with and all this stuff, and talking about their life and how they're struggling. No, you need to cut Billy off. I'm sorry, you do. If Billy don't want to evolve with you, leave him there. Leave him with his stick. You're trying to go get a blade. That's the first step. You're trying to get an appraisal of something better. With him, you can't get no appraisal. You can't get a loan with Billy. You can't buy knowledge with Billy. Billy doesn't know anyone other than you. You know what I mean? So please, free your mind, free your space, free your peace. Be alone sometimes. And then appraise your life and say, man, is my sword sharp? Like, is my sword even sharp? Do I even have a sword? Do I even have the first step? Could I even go and study how this sword was made if I have one? You know what I mean? Some of y'all got to figure out if you have a blade or if you have a stick. That's the first step. I know there's a lot of metaphors being thrown around here, but this is genuinely how I process things, with my mind. For the lack of a working memory, I have to associate with stories and metaphors to actually retain info. So when I talk to y'all, this is how I think. Yeah. So my alarm is about to go off again. But I'm a busy guy, y'all. I'm busy. But yeah. So I hope that helps, you need to get rest from people, for real. Allow yourself to be free. Allow yourself to dream big and scare yourself. Allow yourself to be who you want to be. You don't have to follow this fallacy, this idea of what alpha male is, or what a real woman is, or da-da-da. Be whoever you say you want to be. If you're non-binary and you really feel that way, but you're afraid to say that, or you're afraid to even experiment, just say it. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who's better than you that they can tell you that you're not? Who hasn't made grand mistakes? What, you think just because they went to university they can tell you what you are and what you're not? They ain't shit. I've been to university so many times. And I can guarantee you there ain't one lecturer, one doctor, one anyone. I am as high as you can go in that kind of a field, and they cannot tell you anything. It's bullshit if they say they can. It's bullshit if they say, oh, you'll never be where they are. You can excel past them. Any human can. It's bullshit if they say, oh, you didn't get these grades in high school, so you're just not ever going to be smarter than me. That's bullshit. I want y'all to put those terrible thoughts to bed. And if they say, oh, where'd you get this confidence from? You tell them I said it. You tell them I said it. I'll be a menace to them too. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be rest for y'all and a menace to your enemies. I hate when people out here messing with people who aren't doing anything cruel to anyone. And if they want to sit there and they want to have their entire reality shattered, send them here. Send them to me. I'm willing to talk. Actually, you know what? Don't send them to me. Cut them off from you and don't send them to me, because I don't even want their BS in my life. You know what I'm saying? But if they're being arrogant and they won't leave you alone, then okay, send them over. But look, honestly, if you don't want them in your life, I don't want them in my life either. I ain't gonna lie to you. Because they ain't gonna bring any new arguments to me. They're gonna be like, brother, see, this is why you need to stop pandering to black women. See, they got your mind. And I'm like, shut up. I ain't talking to no hotep. I'm sorry. I ain't. Boy, don't even know how to wash his ass every day, but you're gonna try and tell me, man, look, I need my woman to be subservient. Really? The black woman? The woman who is single-handedly responsible for our group of people still existing? Now, I'm not talking about just giving birth to us. I'm talking about like literally fought more wars than we have and won more wars than we have as black men. And you're trying to tell me you want that woman to be subservient? Every time they were ruling in any area of Africa or Middle East or America, like black people were more prosperous than we've ever been. And you want that woman to be subservient? The woman who, when the men in different armies in Africa like threw down their arms and ran away, the women picked up the arms and beat oppressive forces out of their country. You talking about those women? You talking about the Harriet Tubmans? The women who broke out of slavery, went to the north, walked all the way back to the south 19 separate times and freed over 300 slaves and never lost one? And brought a pistol in case one of them was having a change of heart? You're talking about, I can't think of one black man who left slavery and went back once to get a slave. I'm sure they must exist, but I can't think of one. This black woman went back 19 times. I can think of another black woman right now. I can't think of her name because, again, working memory is terrible. But it's that woman, that young lady who at the time dressed up as an old woman and looked for these slave patrols who were trying to abduct people to take slavery. And she would walk around with a boiling kettle under her, like a massive frock she would have. She would dress up as this big old woman. And she had a boiling kettle under her frock. And I think like a knife or a gun or something. And she would throw boiling water on these slave catchers. And she was free. She didn't have to do this. I can't think of that many black men who was doing this. I got two easy examples right there of black women who were free, didn't have to bother with it. It's not like black men, treated them well. But they was like, look, I can't have my people being slaves. I can't think of one black man who did that for us. Not saying we haven't had black men who have been like, great for us, but like, let's be real here. When black women say, hey, I'm gonna lead something, they lead something. Even Shaka Zulu, his mother ran the country. Yes, he was great, but his mother was always there, like, yo, what's going on? What's happening here? What's happening politically? What's going on? Like, yo, this is what we gotta do. Woo, woo. But y'all telling me you want black women to be subservient? No, y'all gotta so you're following this white male patriarchy thing, man. Because white men ain't even supposed to be treating their women like that. And they're only able to because of off the backs of our ancestors who built up nations for them, and then they bogarted power. Y'all can't expect something that wasn't naturally supposed to be the case to work for us when we were put at the bottom of this fucked up totem pole. Black women are meant to be the ones at the head of everything for us. They are literally better fighters than us historically. I'm talking facts. I'm not talking like, oh, hey, but we're bigger. Motherfucker. Don't go argue with history then. Go argue with history. I'm sorry, because I ain't got the time. I don't have the time. Then you'd be like, oh, but dreaded, but we're bigger. Well, then why didn't we win? Why weren't we the ones winning? We're bigger, but why weren't we the ones winning? And when you think about it, we're only bigger now because of social structures. If all these young black girls went into sports regularly, do you think black men would, and you think if we were the ones who were convinced not to go into sports, you think black women would, genuinely, all these Venus and Serena Williams be walking around here, you think you'd be bigger than all of them on average? You think all the black women would be bigger? No, stop it. All the Snoop Dogs walking around here, you really think if all of us decided not to go into sports? I'm just saying, y'all really need to and y'all love this idea. Y'all love this idea. Because the world has convinced you that, oh, you gotta be a man, and that's put us in a deadlock. That's just one of the many cultural deadlocks we're in, yo. Because if we ever get out of this deadlock, we'd advance the world. And it would be black women at the front of that advancement. But no, we're in this deadlock where we can't believe that a woman should be ahead of us because we want to be like white men and da-da-da. And then white people who want to be allies, they're in a deadlock by what their ancestors have put in place. Because their ancestors put their centeredness in place. Everything white people see, they're at the center of. So they think they're the main character. They think they're the standard. So when they go to help someone and people aren't like worshiping them for it, and there are people who are still a part of that community who are still like, hey, fuck you. They're like, wait a minute, but I'm the main character and I'm doing something good. Why aren't you worshiping me? Why aren't you giving me a pass? Why aren't you letting me be mean? Or why aren't you letting me speak for you? I know what's better for you. Like, that's a natural deadlock that's put there for Anglo-Saxons. That's their deadlock. They can't not center themselves. Black men, we can't not try and be the king of a shit pile. Black women, they are forced out of knowledge. So now they have all of this historical anger and passion and rage that they've used to fight for us, but they don't know what to do with it. And we ain't there to help them. We ain't there. And now if we even try to help them, they're so damaged that they're like self-destructing. They have so much internal mental struggle and no one is there to say, hey, let's bring them to proper like counseling, proper healing, whether it's like spiritual or secular. Like no one's there to say, hey, look, you need to rest and I'm going to force you to rest because you need to understand that you're traumatized through epigenetic destruction. You need to relax, and we need to do that for generations. We're not going to fix it in our generation. Our black women are traumatized, and this from a long time, from hundreds of years. So when I tell y'all we need to like start this now, we are hundreds of years in a backlog of healing, man. Especially like black people, we need to heal, yo. I can't speak for other cultures because again, they're in a deadlock where they want to be white. So like y'all need to figure that out yourselves. Because the times when black people have been standing with like Asian people and different groups and we've almost like broke this deadlock we were all in, something would happen to black people, terrible. And then these other groups, they were in a deadlock of not wanting to stand for us and not wanting to die for us. They were willing to stand with us when, you know, we were all making moves, but then when something happens to us, everyone's quiet. That's the deadlock they're in. They don't want to stand up to white people without us being in the front. So when I'm telling y'all we all have our own deadlocks, we all need to unravel this bullshit, this tradition that we've been born into, y'all. We can't stay like this. And we all try to say, oh, we're the good people. We're part of this group. We're part of that political group. We're part of this racial group. Yeah. Put down your sticks and find your swords. Swords in this context is your knowledge. Sharpen that shit. Your knowledge can't be a soggy stick. You can't open any doors with that. You know what I'm saying? You can't do anything with a soggy stick. That's what your knowledge equates to right now. If you've only followed tradition, you've been following a soggy, old, moldy stick. Throw that away. Let that, be biodegradable. That's only good for history books. It's only good for, the earth to take it. You can't use that. You need to go sharpen, find some metal, make some ores, build a sword. That's what you need, a sword of knowledge. You need to unravel your history. Because there are some things that y'all haven't heard yet that will shock you when you do hear it. So you need to hear it as soon as possible. Some of y'all religiously, there are things that, people have taken... And there are people... These cult leaders are also very, very, very... These are some of the people with some of the sharpest swords. But they're using it for cruelty. And this is what I mean. If you aren't sharp, you can't defend that attack. These cult leaders know what I'm talking about. And they've done their due diligence to a point. And they've read the history and they know, they can show you the truth in the text. And then they sprinkle that truth over their lies to make it more delicious and digestible. So they'll know maybe a bit of what I know or the same shit that I know. And then they'll be like, how can I take advantage of these people? How can I scare them into giving me money? How can I scare them into following me? And they'll sprinkle that truth that me and them will know over lies that they want y'all to believe. I could do the same thing. I could make a church right now if I wanted to. But I'm not an evil piece of shit in that regard. None of us are good, let's be real. But I'm not that kind of evil. That shit to me, that has traumatized me. Cult leaders and shit like that has traumatized me. So I was already into like looking at my history, but shit like that made me do it even more so because I seen how it affected people in my life, and it was disgusting to me. So that's a personal affront to my existence. Cults. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if y'all, I don't know, just do your due diligence. Don't follow every random guru on the internet, every random podcast trying to tell you, even me, like, do your due diligence. You know what I mean? A good place, I think, to start, and again, this is my opinion, is the Bible Project. If you're trying to, for instance, just reading, like, let's say you're, I don't know, Christians or Messianic Jews or whatever, and you're trying to read like the Old Testament through to the New Testament. Even if you're just trying to read the Old Testament, they have basically book overviews that are animated on YouTube. So once you kind of like read through a book, they say it plainly, they have animations, they talk about the historical context to the best of their ability, and you don't have to take their word for it, but like that's what they do. And that's a good place to start. Bible Project. And then you can find like other resources that they might use. So yeah, that's what I think would be good for you. So yeah. And then I'm sure like some other people can show you like other aspects. Like if you're, if you're Muslim, like I'm sure there are other, areas you can go to study that. If you're a Buddhist, I'm sure there are places you can go to study that. If you're Sikh, if you're a Hindu, it's like, just do your due diligence, y'all. Don't just follow the word of mouth, because people, especially before the internet was a thing, people used to just spread random stuff, and I don't know why. But man, look. I think this turned into more of me venting, but I'm just stressed because I want y'all to be at peace. So I hope this gave you permission to give yourself peace. Peace from other people. Peace from traditions. Peace from philosophies. Peace from political parties. Peace from, sports teams that your city might follow. Peace from feeling like you're less than other people. Peace from thinking you need to be cruel to other people. Do your due diligence. Go to the root of everything. And always question. Even if you might agree with me 100%, but question me. Fact check what I say, please. Please. Just because I'm at the highest level you can get academically, which I am, and I teach people and stuff, don't mean I'm infallible. Just because I'm used to questioning things and looking things up, don't mean you can't be right if me and you are arguing. So always fact check. Don't believe any random Google. Google doesn't know everything. Google is made by people. You see what I'm saying? So always fact check. Go on Google. Go to the resources section. If you're going on Wikipedia, look at the resources. Always appraise their resources. Do they get it from scientific journals? Do they get it from PubMed? Even those scientific journals, they weren't up to scratch until maybe like a decade ago. People were publishing bullshit. And just because they had fancy names on it, they let it pass. People's stats have been all wrong for decades. But just because they were in, the American Journal of whatever, they let it pass. That's how a lot of these drugs got passed that weren't okay. Look up the Vioxx study. Look up thalidomide. Look up all these things. It's only now that these terrible things have happened that we're now serious. And now that the public are getting more access into like what's a good practice, what's a good study. More people are getting educated. These things are being shut down now. We're not just taking anything. We're not just letting people treat us like shit. And I don't say that to say don't trust anything medically, because we need medicines. This is another deadlock in the black community. Such terrible things have been done to us, like from science and medicine, that we will literally turn away life-saving medication, life-saving treatments. That's another deadlock. We have no longevity. So look, as someone who's in that field, I'm telling y'all, do your due diligence. Don't just follow random people on WhatsApp. Don't just follow people who say their brothers, cousins, whatever is a nurse. I tell you to even go to university yourself. Do nursing yourself. Go to med school yourself. You can do it. Don't believe what these people tell you. Always get it from the source. Get it yourself. Vaccinations save lives. I'm sorry, y'all. I gotta tell y'all that because it's silly. We shouldn't be the ones dying from this. We shouldn't be the ones turning away things that are literally like life-saving drugs. If I give you insulin and you're diabetic, you're gonna believe a random person on WhatsApp telling you insulin's bad for you? Come on, man. Come on. So do your due diligence. If you don't believe me, fine, do your due diligence, bro. We gotta break these generational curses, these deadlocks that have been put here from 500 years ago. Like that shit, it's dead, bro. It's whack. Let it die. Put down your rusty, nasty, gangrenous, old foot-looking stick and get a sharp, clean sword of knowledge. All right? Thank you. God bless. May you have rest. May you be true to yourself. Whether you're man, woman, intersex, other, whether you're Zay, Zine. Look, hey, I love you regardless, bro. Be yourself. If you want to wear nail polish, wear nail polish. If you want to not marry anyone, if you want to be asexual, be asexual, bro. Don't let your friends dictate what's good and bad for you, please. Be around people who understand you. Do your due diligence. You are worthy. Goodbye.